This is Tractate Yoma, page 3b, top of the page, with the words Mishalcha, Elaman de Amar Mishal Tzibor Ma'ikla Meimar. And similarly, when the Torah states make you, it means from your own property. However, according to the one who said that when the Torah states both phrases, it means from communal property, what is there to say to distinguish between Yom Kippur and the other days? Tanya, because we learned in the Braise, Kach lecha mishelcha, v'yaseh lecha mishelcha, v'yikhu elecha mishal tzibur devei Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yonatan omer, ben kach lecha, ben v'yikhu elecha mishal tzibur, umat hamad lomer kach lecha, k'biyachol mishelcha, ani rotzeh lo tel mishelefnehem, mishelhem. As it was taught in the Braise, that when the Torah states, take you, it means take your own property. And when it states make you, it means from your own property. However, when the Torah states, and they will bring to you, it means from community property. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yonatan says that both when the Torah states, take you, and when the Torah states, and they will bring to you, it means from community property. And for what purpose then does the verse state take you, which seems to mean from your own property? It should be understood, as it were, that God said to Moses, I desire that it come from your property more than I desire from theirs. Therefore, the taking was attributed to Moses, even though it was actually from community property. Okay. Rav Abba Chanan Amar Abar Mishum Rabbi Elazar Katuv Echad Omer V'asisu Lecha Oren Eitz V'kosuv Echad Omer Asu Aron Shitim Hoketzat Kan Bizman Sh'Yisrael Oisin Ratzon Shel Mokoim Kan Bizman She'en Oisin Ratzon Shel Mokoim. Abba Chanan said in the name of Rabbi Elazar, that one verse says, and you make you an ark of wood, Deuteronomy 10:1, indicating that it should be from your own property. And one verse says, on the same subject, and they shall make an ark of acacia wood, Exodus 25:10, meaning from the Jewish people. From the Jewish people. How can this contradiction be resolved? Here the verse is referring to a time when the Jewish people perform the will of God, and they are credited with building the Ark of the Covenant. Ark of the Covenant. There it is referring to a time when the Jewish people do not perform the will of God, and construction of the Ark is attributed to Moses alone. According to that opinion, there is no difference between the offerings of Yom Kippur and other offerings. Ad kamay pligi, ela b'kichos de alma v'sios de alma, kichos de alma, kach lecha samim. Asios de alma, asay lecha, shte chatzoitros kesef. Aval hanoch po shiko mefarish, de mishelechohi, hu, b'miluim mechdi ktiv, ואל בני ישראל תדבר לאמור קחו שעיר עזים לחטוס ויאמר אל אהרון קח לך עגל בן בוקר לחטוס למה לי שמע מינו קח לך משלך הוא. The Gemara rejects as they disagree only with regard to instances of taking in general and instances of making in general. Instances of taking in general are, as in the verse, take you spices, Exodus 30:34. And instances of making in general are, as in the verse, make you 2 silver trumpets, Numbers 10:2. However, in those cases of inauguration and of Yom Kippur, the verses explicitly teach that the offerings must be from your own property. With regard to the inauguration now, since it is written, and to the children of Israel you will speak, saying, take a goat, kid, for a sin offering, and an unblemished year-old calf, and lamb for burnt offerings. Leviticus 9:3. With regard to the verse, and he said to Aaron, take you a young calf for a sin offering. Leviticus 9:2. Why do I need this clear difference between the formulation of the command to the Jewish people and the formulation of the command to Aaron? Learn it from that. In this context, the phrase take you, this means from your own property. Yoma Kippurim mechti kasi bezois yavayaron el kodesh epar ben boker lechatos umeis hadas bnei Yisrael yikach shnei seiris im lechatos v'ykriv es par lechatos sheloi lama lish b'amina hailoi misheloi hu. And with regard to Yom Kippur, now, since it is written with this, Aaron will come into the sanctuary with a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. Leviticus 16, verse 3. With regard to the verse, and from the congregation of the children of Israel, he will take 2 goats for a sin offering and 1 ram for a burnt offering, and Aaron will offer his young bull as a sin offering. Leviticus 16, 5-6. Why do I need the emphasis that the goats come from the property of the children of Israel? Learn from it that this term, his, written with regard to the calf, means it is from his own property. Rav Ashi Amar, Dinin par lechatos v'ayel oilo, mi par lechatos v'ayel oilo lapoki Rosh Hashanah, ve'atzeres, Rabashi stated another reason that distinguishes Yom Kippur from Rosh Hashanah and Shavuot. One derives the bull for a sin offering and ram for burnt offering written with regard to Yom Kippur from the bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering written with regard to the inauguration, to the exclusion of Rosh Hashanah and Shavuot, on which both of them, the bull and the ram, are burnt offerings. Ravina Amar, Dinin avoida b'koyin gadol avoida b'koyin gadol okay kule kushyatin tilav avoda b'koyin gadol linu. Ravina stated another distinction. One derives a matter that is restricted to the service performed by the high priest, Yom Kippur, from a matter that is restricted to the service performed by the high priest, the inauguration, which was performed by Aaron to the exclusion of all the difficulties raised from the beginning of the discussion, as on the other potential days raised. They are not restricted to service performed by the high priest. Rather, the service on those days may be performed by any priest. V'ikad amri amaravina dinan avodah techila b'avodah techila. Le'apoki hani delav techila ninu my techila. I limit techila kohen gadol hainu kaimo so elo avodah techila m'koyim avodah techila m'koyim. And some say that Ravina said one derives a matter that is an initial service from an initial service to the exclusion of all these that are not initial services. The statement of Ravina is unclear, and the Gemara asks, what is the meaning of initial service? If we say that initial service means, excuse me 1 second. Okay. I'm sure. Got dust or something on my hair. I'm not sure. If you notice, I'm like rubbing my hair because got dust. It feels like maybe there's something on there. But at any rate, weiter. And some say Ravina said one derives a matter that is an initial service from an initial service to the exclusion of all these that are not initial services. That statement of Ravina is unclear, and the Gemara asks, what is the meaning of initial service? If we say that initial service means one performed by the high priest, that is identical to the first version of Ravina's statement. Rather, it may be understood as follows. One derives the initial service performed in the place, the Holy of Holies, on Yom Kippur, from the initial service performed in the place, the tabernacle, on the 8th day of the inauguration. Therefore, it is the service of Yom Kippur alone that is derived from the inauguration. Okay? Ki asa Rav Dimi Yoma Rav Yochanan Masni Chada Rav Yehoshua ben Levi Masni Tarti. Rav Yochanan Masni Chada Lasis Nechaper Ela Masi Yom Kippurim Yehoshua ben Levi Masni Tarti. La'asot elu maaseh para lechaper elu maaseh Yom Kippurim. When Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he said, Rabbi Yochanan taught one case derived from the inauguration, while Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi taught two. The Gemara elaborates. Rabbi Yochanan taught one to make atonement. These are the actions performed on Yom Kippur that require sequestering beforehand, like the inauguration. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi taught two to do. These are the actions performed in the burning of the red heifer. To atone, these are the actions performed on Yom Kippur. Both require sequestering. Rabbi Yochanan Masni Chada Anan Tanan Shivas Yomim Koyim Yom Kippur Shivas Yomim Koyim Seres Aporo Ma'aleh V'Almo. The Gemara asks, and did Rabbi Yochanan teach only one case derived from the inauguration in Yom Kippur? Didn't we learn explicitly in the Mishnah 7 days prior to Yom Kippur, and then another Mishnah 7 days prior to the burning of the heifer? The sages would remove the priest from his home. Apparently, there are two cases in which the priest is sequestered. The Gemara answers, with regard to sequestering the priest prior to the burning of the heifer, the sages merely established a higher standard. They issued a decree to underscore the sanctity of the ritual after they permitted its performance by a priest who immersed that day. There was no Torah source for the sequestering of the priest in that case. Amar Rav ben Yomi bar Chilkiah, Amar Rabbi Machasya bar Idi, Amar Rav Yochanan, Kasher asa b'yom hazeh, tziva Hashem la'asos lechaper alechem, la'asos, elu ma'aseh para, lechaper, elu ma'aseh Yom Kippurim, ahu derabeh, techi ata rabin, Amar Rav Yochanan mishum Rabbi Ishmael, לעשות אלו מעשי פרה, לכפר אלו מעשי יום הכיפורים. The Gemara asks, but didn't Rabbi Yomi bar Chilkiah say that Rabbi Mahasya bar Idi said that Rabbi Yochanan said that the verse states, as has been done this day, so the Lord has commanded to do, to make atonement for you. Leviticus 8:34. From which it is derived to do, these are the actions performed in the burning of the red heifer. To make atonement, these are the actions performed on Yom Kippur. Apparently, even Rabbi Yochanan taught two cases derived from the inauguration. The Gemara resolves the difficulty. That is the opinion of his teacher. However, he himself disagrees. And when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, he said that Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Ishmael, to do, these are the actions performed in the burning of the red heifer. To atone, these are the actions performed on Yom Kippur. That which Rabbi Yomi cited in the name of Rabbi Yochanan was the opinion of his teacher, Rabbi Ishmael. Amar Rish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan mehecha יעלפת עליהם ממילואים. אם המילואים כל הכתוב בהן מעכב בהן, אף הכנמי כל הכתוב בהן מעכב בהן. With regard to the sequestering of the priest, Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, so where did you derive this principle of sequestering? You derived it from the inauguration. If so, just as with regard to the inauguration, failure to perform all the details that are written in its regard invalidates it, so to here, with regard to Yom Kippur, failure to perform all the details that are written in its regard invalidates Yom Kippur service. All the halachot of sequestering must be precisely observed. Umatkinin lo kohen acher velo ketanim mafrishin chitiman my matkinin mafrishin lisne oe idi veidi matkinan o idi veidi mafrishin. If you say indeed it is so, didn't we learn in the Mishnah, and they would designate another priest instead? And is it not taught with regard to the priest, 7 days before Yom Kippur they remove him from his house, although ultimately he may perform the Yom Kippur service? Apparently, failure to sequester the priest does not invalidate the service. And if you say in response, what is the meaning of they would designate? It means they would remove. That is implausible. Were that so, let the Mishnah teach either with regard to both this high priest and that designated replacement they would designate, or with regard to both this high priest and that designated replacement they would remove. Amarle, he said to him, and we're now at the final stretch, which is always a nice, exciting thing. Oh, we got to move. Amarle, ella amarmar mehechayalf le, amar mesinai dichsev ishkon kavod Hashem al har Sinai. Echaseo anan sheshis yomim yikran Moshe b'yom hashvi. Mechdi ksiv. B'yikran Moshe b'yom hashvi. Mai sheshis yomim. Ze bona ab. Ze nichnas b'machne shchina. Tom Prisha Shisha. Rabbi Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, rather, from where do you, Master, derive the halachas of question for Yom Kippur? Reish Lakish said to him, I derive from Sinai, as is written, and the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered him 6 days, and he called him Moses on the 7th day from the midst of the cloud. Exodus 24:16. The masculine suffix who in Vayaseu can be interpreted either as him, referring to Moses, or as it is, referring to the mountain. Now it states, and he called to Moses on the 7th day. What is derived from the previous explicit mention of 6 days? These 6 days are mentioned as a paradigm from which a general principle is derived that anyone who enters the camp of the divine presence, the site of the revelation of Mount Sinai, or the place where the divine presence rests, the Holy of Holies requires prior sequestering for 6 days of sanctification. The Gemara asks, but wasn't it 7, not 6 days of sequestering that we learned in the Mishnah? Reish Lakish answered, the Mishnah that requires sequestering for 7 days is the opinion of Yehuda ben Meseira, who is concerned, and we made it within 18 minutes, 18 and a half minutes, so we're still good, we made it under 20 minutes. Generally, I like to stay closer to 15, but anyway.